You can't tell the story of George Herbert Walker Bush without Barbara.
I fell in love with him practically at first sight.
Their love story began at a dance in Greenwich, Connecticut. George was 17, Barbara 16. They were engaged when George left to serve in World War II. He named each of his planes Barbara, and the two kept in touch through letters. George wrote this one on December 12, 1943, about his excitement over seeing their engagement announcement in the paper. I love you, precious, with all my heart, and to know you love me means my life. How often I have thought of the immeasurable joy that will be ours someday. How lucky our children will be to have a mother like you.
They're an amazing couple. Amazing couple. A life of service, a life well led. Both of them.
Their love proven on paper. The original protected at the George Bush Presidential Library and Museum in College Station, Texas. The museum also holds Barbara Bush's wedding dress. The couple married on January 6, 1945, 2 weeks after George returned from the war. It started a 73-year marriage, the longest presidential marriage in history.
One of the reasons I made the most important decision of my life to marry George Bush is because he made me laugh.
Poppy and Bar laughed with each other until the end, in sickness and in health. He was by her side when she passed in April 2018, holding her hand as she left this life.
The last time my mom went into the hospital, I think Dad got sick on purpose so that he could be with her. That's my theory, at least, because literally a day later he showed up with an illness. He came into her room when she was sleeping and held her hand. His hair was standing straight up. He had on a mask to improve his breathing. He was wearing a hospital gown. In other words, he looked like hell. Mom opened her eyes and said, "My God, George, you are devastatingly handsome."
When Barbara died, George said he wanted to stay strong for his beloved wife and their family. 41 told us to cross the Bushes off your worry list. Now that George and Barbara are together again, we finally can.
A nation in mourning over the loss of a life well lived.
We're going to miss her terribly.
92-year-old Barbara Bush passes away with the first man she ever kissed by her side until her last breath.
I married the first man I ever kissed. You talk about a bore. I am the world's worst.
Married 73 years, this couple remained an old-fashioned love story.
I fell in love with him practically at first sight.
Mrs. Bush will be remembered for her generosity, grace, and dedication to Maine and beyond.
What a life. She was an inspiration for all, no question.
A devoted mother, wife, and first lady to the nation. We honor a woman of class who will never be forgotten.
She was such a lady, just the ultimate lady, and she just was so kind and compassionate and just cared about people.
Tonight, a special presentation, Barbara Bush, A Legacy of Love.
Just a short drive from the Capitol building. A gallery of portraits capturing some of the most important people of our time.
Well, I think it's a great likeness of President Bush, and I think that it's a portrait that exemplifies the dignity that he brought to the office.
41's official portrait is set in the White House. Wearing a striped navy suit and a red tie, he seems to glow.
I think the lighting is beautiful. It's a very warm kind of portrait.
The light is typical of the artist Ronald Schur, who painted this portrait a year after Bush left office. Visitors today say Schur captured much more than his likeness.
What I notice most is the light on his face and in the office is of equal value. That the light wasn't merely shining on him, it was also shining on the office he represented. And there's a look of strength and yet peace at the same time.
Contrasting the light, a dark velvet cloth representing the nation's loss.
He was a very dignified man, considerate. You know, I think he was always known as sort of a nice, gentle person. You know, that was his reputation. So I think the portrait captures some of that.
Next to the portrait, a book of reflection. Amanda Britt wrote down her gratitude.
Thank you for a life of leadership and modeling what it means to combine honor, humor, and heart. That's, I think those things he characterized really well.
A note left, but something to take away.
I hope that yesterday's service was touching to everyone in Washington, and I hope that we can all go forward as Americans remembering that's who we are.